What's up, guys? Welcome back to Mike It Yourself, and for today's video we're going to make ourselves our own saddlebag stand. So let's take a look at what Harley Davidson offers, and then we'll talk about what we're going to make on a budget. Damn it! Okay guys, so this is what's right off of the Harley Davidson website, and they've got this set up here. So I guess part of the question might be like, why would you want something like this? So they list this as a saddlebag storage stand, and I'm not sure, like I wouldn't call it a storage stand. For me personally, the reasoning that I have for wanting something like this is when I wash the bikes, I want to be able to put my saddlebags on something, and I could actually use it to also wash the saddlebags kind of separately and allow them to sit and dry, because today I lay them out in the grass, right? And it's kind of a pain, right? It's inconvenient, so not crazy. So for an inconvenience, what I can't justify is spending $124.95 on this. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm sure it's great quality, all that kind of good stuff, but if I can get the same thing for a lot less, then why not? Okay guys, so we've got our saddlebag here on the table. We've got some materials here in front of us, and then a reference. So the reference here is the stock or the standard saddlebag support. And if you measure the diameter of this support, you're gonna get about 3/4 of an inch, okay? So that means that's the size that's needed in order for it to fit inside the rubber tracks, or whatever you want to call them there, on your saddlebag, okay? So that's the size you need. The other thing to note is, just note your support doesn't go through the back, out the back side of this saddlebag. It curves out, okay? So that's something else we're gonna have to consider as we do our measurements, as well as the depth, or not the depth, but I guess how long your saddlebag is. So I went with my 5-inch stretch because that is my longest of my saddlebags between my Road King and the Road Glide. And the reason I'm doing that is just because I want to make sure that it's lifted off the ground enough and tilted at an angle where this isn't going to be hitting the floor. And you'll see that more as we get closer to putting this thing together. So really you have two options that you can use. If you wanted to use a 1/4 or 1/2 inch PVC pipe, you can do that. That'll actually fit into those little deals a little bit better than what I'm going to use. And that is, I'm using 3/4 inch PVC piping. And the reason I'm doing that, again, it's a personal preference for me, is I don't want it to go inside of these, because I want to be able to pick this thing up and not worry about it flipping over the stand. I just feel like 1/2 inch seems to be a little bit snug, or too snug for me, that if I have this on there, it's weighted down, it gets a good firm grip in these rubber holding tracks, that if I pick it up, I may flip over the stand and knock my other saddlebag off. So by using the 3/4, it doesn't sit in these channels, it just kind of lets it be supported. And if I pick it up, it's not going to grab, because it's not really truly, you know, sitting on over the piping. So let's take some measurements. All right, so our first measurement is going to be from kind of center of this here out to the front of the bag. Now, I do want it to stick out a little bit because, you know, I don't want to be exactly in alignment with that. It's going to hook out, so it shouldn't be a problem, but I'm just going to go a little bit, right? So not much. So as I look at this, if I go literally to the edge of the bag here, it's about 16 inches. So what we're going to go with is about 17.5. So that gets me out just a little bit. So we're going to say the base of this is going to be 17.5 inches. All right, so that is going to set the framework for all of this. And as we cut our PVC, and that's the great thing about PVC, is you cut it, if you get a bad size, not a big deal, because it's so cheap to replace if you need to go buy more. All in all, this thing's going to cost us probably less than 20 bucks. And at the same time, we can also kind of test fit and move it around. And again, we can adjust this thing as we go through this process, which makes it really, really easy and for less than a quarter of the price if you bought the HD version. So let me go ahead and use that base. We're going to take a couple other measurements, essentially going up, and then I'll walk you through what measurements I took and the reason why I took them, just to kind of give you an idea of what this thing's going to look like before we start cutting and putting pieces together. All right, so I am a master artist, like Picasso. So I've drawn here essentially what this thing's going to look like from the side, and then that mid support that I was talking about, kind of got that out there too, just to point something out, because some of this measuring we're going to do on the fly, just because I don't know, I don't have a plan or anything, and I'm definitely not somebody who knows exactly how I want to get it all done, because of the couplings, they add some measurement to the stuff, and I mean, I guess you could measure it inside the coupling. It's too much work, right? So I'll measure some of it on the fly. So the measurements I've taken so far is the height from where this thing's going to rest on the ground to the top of it. That's going to be 22 inches. Now we're going to have to cut that, okay? And the reason we're cutting that is because we're going to put a T-fitting here. So that T-fitting is what's going to support that cross member there halfway through the bag, right? Now the bag is only about 20 inches. So really what that's going to be is about, like, 11 and 11 or so, depending on how much length the coupler adds to it. And then the in-between I'll have to measure out as we work through that process. The measurement for the kick out, I'm going with 8 inches. And the reason I did that is the way it sits on the bike is about 4.5 inch. You don't have a whole bunch of tilt on it. So I'm throwing 8 inches out there, and that should give me enough lean angle to where it's resting on that stand. Will it be enough? I think so, but I won't know until I put things together and kind of test it out, right? I don't know where, like, the center of gravity is and blah blah blah, right? This isn't like some scientific thing. I'm trying to do this as a regular dude, so bear with me here. The lift on it is going to be 6 inches. So this is actually appears where the bag is going to rest on, and with the angle and the distance there being 6 inches, that should give me enough clearance to not have to worry about my saddlebag touching the ground. So we'll see how that goes. Now for the couplers, we've got two different types. We're going to do 90 degrees and T-fittings. So we're going to do a 90 degree here, so that gives us a 45 degree angle as we go through that. 90s here and here, and then just a straight up T-fitting. Now you might be asking, why not use a 45 degree, right? It's just not going to give you enough tilt, and based on this being kind of like a triangle, you don't want to do that 45, because that's going to really kind of make this thing super wide, and that just won't work. So let's go ahead. We're going to start trimming some of this stuff down. Let me show you how I'm going to cut it, because there's a couple of ways to cut it, and it all depends on you, but I'll tell you what I like and what I don't like. Okay, so if you cut PVC pipe in the past, you know that there's a couple of tools that are out there to be able to cut this pipe. This is a pretty common one, where you just open this guy up, you start ratcheting down, and it cuts the pipe. I like this for quick cuts, and you don't have to worry about what it looks like or anything. And maybe it's an OCD thing or whatever, but see what happens. You get like these weird angles and stuff on it, and again, maybe it's just me, I don't know, but I want them to be straighter, just so they sit in the couplers a little bit better, or at least in my mind it sits in there better. It probably means nothing, guys, so take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. If you like using this and it gives you no worries, then dude, this is the way to go. It's quick, it's easy. What I'm going to do is, this is for wood, so this is not for PVC, but it's a saw's cut crap, right? And I like to use these guides because this keeps me in a 90 degree, nice and straight. I'm sure if I wanted to, I could get my miter saw out and it'd be that much quicker, but it doesn't take that long to cut through PVC, so I'm not going to go through the hassle of pulling that down and all that stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead and start cutting my pieces. I'm gonna do 1/2 just so we can kind of test fit everything out, make sure it all works out. We do any trimming that we need to do, and then we have a template of pieces to do for the other side, right? Because you're doing 2 sides, 1, 2. Okay, cool. So let me go ahead and start cutting some stuff up. So I've got my first side kind of cut out and somewhat put together, right? So none of it's glued or anything like that. But I've run into my first issue with the measurements I took. So what I wanted is the 17.5 base. I've got a 6-inch rise here with an 8-inch kick out. And these are the 22s that are here. And ultimately, because of the 90-degree angle, these are gonna sit like that at an angle. So what I wanted to do is test fit my bag on here and see what it's gonna look like. And what I found is this 8-inch right here, that's far too far out. So let me show you what I mean. So if I take my bag and put it on, okay, even with it just standing up 90 degrees, that's a pretty good lean on it. Like that's what I would want normally, but this thing's gonna also be at a 90-degree angle, so that's gonna be far too much of a lean. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut my 8 inches down in half and try it again with a 4-inch kick out and see if that's a good enough kind of tilt or whatever. I'm expecting it's gonna be close. It might not be perfect. So the right perfect measurement may be somewhere between 2 and 3 inches, I don't know. So let's try out with the 4 and go from there. Got these things cut down to 4 inches a piece, and now I figured out kind of where I went wrong in my measurements. So as I told you, when I started taking those measurements, I went out to the bike and I measured the distance from the bike frame to the support beam or support for the saddlebag. And I was kind of using that and decided to make it longer to kick it out further so I can get a better lean. But what I didn't think about is the fact that this thing was also going to be tilted at a 45-degree angle because of the 90 that's going to be at the top of this, right? So that's where I made my mistake. So now that I got this thing down to 4 inches, the saddlebag sits almost straight up and down at that point, at this point here. But then once you tilt it to that 90 or 45 degrees, then it'll sit in there just fine. Now it is a little kind of wobbly in that it doesn't have that support that I need to put in here with those T-fittings. So what I wanted to do is just kind of get an idea of where the center of the bag is in comparison to this, and then mark that off, and that'll be kind of my halfway point or where I'm going to cut these. I didn't want to just cut them at the 11 inch mark. I just wanted them something a little bit more centered on the bag for what I think is going to be better support. Again, I'm not an engineer, so this is all kind of guessing. Anyhow, so I'm going to take those measurements, cut this up, put those T-fittings in, put the support beam across, and we'll take a look at it. All right, we've got our little center support there, and what we're going to do is I'm going to use this this little square here to kind of give us an idea of where that 45-degree angle is, so we can see what that's going to look like. So that's about 45, so there's plenty of tilt in this. That's going to work well, right? So it's going to be pretty wide still at the base. I'm curious to see what that's going to look like, and if anything, because we have the length available in these verticals, I can cut that down to make it not as wide at the base. We'll just have to see how it looks like, but for now, I think this is going to be okay, and it'll be usable for the purposes that we want to put it to work for. So at this point, now I take this template and I make another one of everything, right? For this T section here, I just kind of penciled it based on where it was, so I'm not even actually sure what the actual measurements are, and I'll go over that probably at the end of the video, so that way if you just want to, again, replicate it exactly as I make it, then that'll be easier. And then this middle piece was about 18 1/4, inches here, and that's kind of where it ended up. I did my best to keep things as square as possible. Again, it's not my trade, so is that perfect? I don't know, probably not. It's actually pretty close, but it's not perfect. So let me go ahead and make another one of everything, and we can put this thing together to see what it's going to look like with some saddlebags on it. Here is the final product. It works. I do see some improvements that can be made on this already. I was kind of thinking about, like, is the height right? What's going on? Because it's got a pretty good spread there on the bottom. I want to say that's probably a good like 3 feet at least between that touch point and that touch point. The angle on it is a little bit more than I kind of envisioned, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's secure, right? It's like not going to tip over. So not worried about that. The width on it is perfect. This I'm happy with. I'm not too concerned with that there. Yeah, so it does a really good job holding these up. Now, definitely recommend probably putting like a strap or something across if you have a lot of stuff in your bags. I only carry a lot of tools in one bag. The other one I leave open so I can put like my laptop bag or whatever it is if I happen to be going to work. So one's empty, the other one's got loaded down with stuff. And I mean, you don't really see a flex unless you try to shift it around with the bags on it. Then you see a little bit of movement there, but nothing that I'd be too concerned about. So that's it. Now you could choose to paint it if you want or whatever. I don't think it's necessary, but something you can do. So really the only thing I have left to do is to put some PVC cement in all of the different couplers to get those solidified in place. The ones I'm not going to do are these top ones because I want to leave those where I can go ahead and just separate it. So I'll do it on one side but not the other side, right? So like glue on that side, not on the side. Just so I can go ahead and take it apart and collapse it and put it away. And I don't have to deal with the, you know, something that's static like that, right? Because then it's a little bit harder to find a storage for it. So yeah, I don't know. So I'm going to put some use on it, see how it works out. I've seen some kind of instances of this where they put like pool noodles for whatever reason. Like maybe they don't like that it's touching the PVC. If you do paint it, just be aware of that. You're going to be putting your stuff on it. So it's probably going to rub off anyways. I think if anything, like rubberized tape might do some good. I don't know. So anyhow, let me go ahead and walk you through the measurements of all of the pieces. So that way you know what you would need to make this exact thing if that's the way you want to go. Yeah, and then ultimately, like I said, once I get some use on it, I think I'm probably going to redesign this most likely because, again, I'm already thinking of some ideas that I'd like to test out. But for its initial build, I think it came out pretty good. It's not too bad. It's doing the job I expected it to do. So let's talk pieces. So this is what it takes to make one side. So what you're seeing here, you double and then you get the full thing. So just to kind of put things in perspective, at least to give you the counts of everything. So what you're going to need are 4 of these at 17.5 inches. This is what's going to serve as your base for the saddlebag to sit on, and then also serve as the rest that it leans up onto. So on the back side of the bag. So that's what those two are for. You're going to need 4 12 and 5/8 inch pieces, and what these do is these serve from essentially they're going to go like the inside, so where it touches the ground, that 90-degree elbow, up to the T-fitting. You'll have your T-fitting and then the secondary piece. So that secondary piece, you're going to need 4 of these. These are 9 1/4 inch in length. You're going to need 4 6-inch. Now these are what I call the risers. So this is what goes from the 90-degree angle up to where the elbow is, and then that lower support bracket. Okay. The last pieces you're going to need, at least for the piping, is you're going to need 4 of these, and these are 3.5 inch pieces. And what these do is these actually sit on top of these are what kicks out away from that the elbow that is touching the ground. So your elbow touching the ground here, this pushes that out, and then you get your 6-inch riser. Okay. You're going to need 4 of these T-fittings and 14 90-degree elbows. So depending on your hardware store, that'll, you know, that should give you what you need to make your purchase. I bought 20 feet of the 3/4 inch piping. I did have a little bit left over, but not a whole bunch. And then I bought the exact amount of fittings I needed. I did find that it was a better deal. They sold like the 90 degrees in a pack of 10. So I did that plus 10 or 4 loose ones, and then the 4 fittings, right? Or the 4 T fittings that I needed. So that's what it takes to put this thing together. Super, super simple. And all in all, I want to say it was just under 20 bucks. So when you compare the cost of that, you know, manufactured one being $124 versus this for $20, and it serves the same purpose depending on what you're looking for. So in my case, just something to put my saddlebags on while I wash the bike, then huge savings. I got an extra $100. That means more gas money, more miles on the bike. All right, guys, so now that you know what the measurements are, I did want to just quickly show you how to put that Lego set together. So as I mentioned, you're going to have 4 of these pieces here. So this is what's sitting underneath the saddlebag, and this is what the saddlebag is leaning up against. And those are the 17.5 inch pieces. Then you have the 4 12 and 5/8 inch pieces. So that's these here. You got 4 of these 9 1/4. So that's that part there. Your 6-inch riser is that right there. That's what lifts it up. These are your 3.5 inch pieces. And then you got all your elbows, right? So elbow, elbow, elbow. So 14 of those, and then 4 of those bad boys. Your top ones, of course, connect to the other side. And once you do that, then you're able to tip this over, and that gives you your angle. So hopefully that shows you how to put it together pretty quickly. Okay, guys, so that's this week's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, just looking for an opportunity to make something yourself. Do it for a low price. Get the same benefits that you're looking for and save a ton of money. And in this case, we're saving $100. That's a freaking win, right? That's not even counting taxes and shipping, right? So even more money than that. Granted, you probably get free shipping, but you ain't avoiding them taxes, I'll tell you that. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that thumbs up. If you enjoy my content, check out the other videos. Become a subscriber. I'd love to have you as a member of our community. And if you've done something like this, if you put something like that, or you see something that you think could have been done better, throw it in the comments below. I'm always open to learning something new. I'm hoping that's what I'm bringing to you all as I learn as I go. And hopefully we can all benefit from each other. So until that next video does post, I hope to see you in the win.